Doug was standard time.
Exactly.
We go.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jose Grijalva,
Here.
Ms. Alex Boneo, Mr. Adam Brake,
Here.
Ms. Anel Lopez. Here. Mr. Pete Cordova,
Here.
Mr. Michael Bardenegro,
Present.
Mr. Luis Pedrosa,
Present.
Ms. Monica Miranda.
Present.
Second item on the agenda, persons wishing to address the committee in writing or verbally on any item not on the agenda.
None?
We don't have it. Thank you. The third item, approval of minutes for November 1st, 2007. For the record, I'd like to say that Mrs. Boneo, Alex Boneo, has joined the meeting at 5:31.
So noted.
The third item on the agenda, approval of minutes for November 1st, 2017 and June 1st, 2021. I'd like to have a motion to table this item because I was informed that there's minor things that need to be corrected on them. Do I have a motion to table it for the next meeting? Do I have a second?
I second.
Motion by Mrs. Lopez and a second by Mr. Pete Cordova. Roll call?
Mr. Jose Grijalva,
Yes.
Ms. Alex Boneo,
Yes.
Mr. Adam Brake,
Yes.
Ms. Anel Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Pete Cordova.
Yes.
Motion passes. Fourth item on the agenda, presentation discussion of end of fiscal year 2020-2021 financial update. Mrs. Miranda?
Thank you, Councilman Quintana. This is the fourth quarter financial status report for fiscal year 2021. And I'm pleased to say that as you're going to see in the next few slides, overall the city ended the fiscal year in a very fiscally sound state, despite having to weather through the COVID pandemic. Working. Huh? Okay, so as of June 30, 2021, our cash position ended on a very positive note as a whole. The general fund reserve is sitting at $7,879,601, while our restricted funds ended the year as follows. The HERF, which is our Highway Users Revenue Fund, ended at $1,049,050. The CARES Act budgeted capital, which are the capital projects we're able to complete due to the CARES Act funding, freeing up funds at the end of, during the fiscal year, ended at $335,825. Our fund balance capital projects, which were due to the surplus that was approved by council in the budget amendment of January 2021, ended at $366,414. Our contingency reserve funding remains at $1 million. Capital projects ended at $0. RICO ended at $267,087. Our debt service fund ended at $12,618. And as a side note, I should mention that our initial PowerPoint presentation showed a negative balance on both the capital projects and debt service funds, and that was due to transfers from the general fund to cover the approved projects and the payment of the fire department ambulance in debt service being inadvertently not processed. So we corrected that in the journal entries that have been entered. So these are the revised balances. Our Alex Black Fund, which is the restricted fund created due to the donation for use to aid the families of firefighters who passed away while in the line of duty, ended at $145,366. And our self-funded insurance claim reserve ended at $685,704. Our total restricted fund cash position at June 30, 2021 is $3,862,064. and a total combined general government cash position at year end of $11,741,665, which is great news. This slide depicts our reserve minimum amounts required for the city and where we are at year end. Our 45-day operating reserves should be at $1,782,493. Our capital reserve should be at a minimum of $1,463,708, while our debt service reserve should be at a minimum of $1,274,078, for a total minimum reserve of $4,520,279. Our year-end general fund reserve is at $7,879,601, which is $3,359,322 over what we should be at, which is, again, positive news.
Especially during the
COVID.
pandemic, and like you said, and also the border closing, so very encouraging numbers.
This next slide is a graphical representation of our general fund unrestricted cash position from 2012 through 2021. As you can see, we've been trending upwards for the past 2 fiscal years. Again, very positive outlook for the city. The next few slides you're going to see depict our sales tax revenue for FY 2021 compared to 1920. Despite the COVID pandemic and resulting border restricted crossings, along with the loss of our border contractors, we've thankfully trended above fiscal year 20's figures. We anticipate this trend to continue during fiscal year 22, perhaps not at this great of a scale, but still higher than prior tax revenue collections.
And I think Mr. Valenzuela wanted to correct you that you said 1920, right?
No.
Oh.
This is a month-to-month comparison of fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 20 sales tax revenues. We ended the year at $1,552,266, or 21.2% more than last fiscal year, and $2,138,725 more than budgeted sales tax revenues.
Mr. Miranda, were we very conservative with the budget this year as far as compared to prior years?
We try to be conservative, but not overly conservative, because we want to have that flexibility to be able to spend in our budget.
So we've still been spending as much as we've needed to. We haven't cut back drastically, and we're still in this good situation.
What do we credit? That's amazing. How? How?
Our 1 cent sales tax, the increase that we had, the border contractors were also a big help with that. Also the Wayfair ruling had a lot to do with it as well.
That's amazing.
You'll see in the sales tax like that's coming up, you'll see where we ended up. But I think your question is even to COVID. We also kind of scratching our heads, but we went to our conference just recently and talked to other cities. All but 2 cities that I talked to were in just almost record-setting years as far as sales tax. It's really amazing. The only city, I remember one city, Scottsdale, was one that suffered, but 98% of cities did very well. It's amazing because all the hardships and things that happened, but talking to other colleagues, they mentioned, people stuck around in their cities. They shopped locally. There was still activity happening, going on. There was money being pumped into the economy as well. So for us, different factors, like Monica mentioned, we had border wall contractors, but what's even surprising is they left and we still kept trending upwards. Our market still performed, and then we feel that the cross-border shopping still kind of happened just in some way, shape, or form. The online sales tax really came through at the right time. Let me just tell you that Wayfair law just kicked in about 2-3 years ago, and it really has been fruitful.
I'm super grateful, by the way. It's perplexing. It's crazy. It's awesome.
So this is a more detailed breakdown of the prior slide, and it shows a comparison of sales tax revenues to last year's figures, as well as compared to budgeted amounts. And as stated in the last slide, we ended the year at $2,138,725, or 32% above what we originally budgeted.
And going back to your question, Mr. Ricardo, about the 2021 budgeting, I think we were very conservative in that sales tax figure. But I don't think it was off for us to have been conservative because of what we were facing at that point. We budgeted that way because we were heading into unknown. How long is COVID gonna last? Are we gonna drop off at some point? The border closure is still gonna be, so we budgeted very conservatively, and to our surprise, I mean, 32% above our projections is no small feat, to say the least. So we just overall very surprised about that. And then compared to the prior year, 21% above, which, Monica, I think July, August, September, October, you're not comparing apples to apples, right? Because the 1 cent sales tax, you're not really comparing that. You're comparing it to two different tax rates, but after November, you are comparing it, and we're still trending upwards compared to last year. So it's just, again, very surprising and very welcome, I would say.
It's a good surprise.
This slide shows a breakdown of sales tax revenue collected by category, and as you can see, there's some large differences from 1920. Advertising is up 120%, which I'm not allowed to give out names of the filers, but it's largely due to an increase in advertising efforts by our 3 main filers in 2021. Publication is down 94.8%, and that's due to the loss of a major filer in 2021. Printing is up due to 1 filer making 1 large filing in one of the months. And contracting is down due to several large projects being completed and the vendors no longer having to file those amounts. But the smaller projects continue, and those filers remain consistent. The effects of the marketplace facilitated filings, which again is due to the 2018 Wayfair ruling, is apparent in the marketplace sales for food for home consumption increased 123.5%, and marketplace retail sales increased 200.1% from 1920. And also, I believe that the use tax increase that you see is due to these marketplace filers erroneously filing in that category. So overall, we're in a very positive place with sales tax, and we're hopeful that the trend's going to continue, and of course, we're going to continue to monitor and report back to you in council.
Just a little history on the marketplace. That's a new category that the state set up once the Wayfair law came into effect. And those not familiar with Wayfair is North Dakota, I believe, challenged the law and kind of litigated against Wayfair. Wayfair was against sales tax, online sales tax, and the court ruled in favor of North Dakota. Therefore, starting this whole system of everybody can basically require online retailers to pay the same sales tax that brick and mortar stores are paying. So it was a sense of equality there. But they created these categories, and some online vendors were already filing sales tax, even though they didn't have to, but they never switched their categories to those marketplace ones. So they kept filing their use tax. So that's why sometimes it's challenging and really out of our control to tell them to file in the right tax category. So, and then the market facility retail sales tax for food consumption, that's basically food bought online and delivered here into Douglas. And the other retail is just anything at retail, Amazon, Walmart's, Apple, all those different online retailers that are having products being delivered here to Douglas. So that's that for those changes changes that just happened here through the state.
And overall, it's 21.3% from last fiscal year.
The restaurant and bar surprises me, especially, I mean, with this pandemic, there's people going out and eating, so that's very encouraging that it's just not, like you're saying, online or store. I mean, they're actually going there and buying it, whether it's dining in or just taking out. But that's very encouraging too.
Oh, okay. Okay, this next slide depicts where each of our major funds stand at the end of fiscal year 2021. The general fund ended the year with the remaining budget balance of $2,715,182. HERF at $1,661. The LTAF fund, which is our transit fund, at $175,126. Again, capital projects is at $0. Self-funded insurance ended at $11,537. Airport also is at $0. The water fund at $300,774. Sewer at $2,300,315. Sanitation ended at $168,624. And the golf course ended at $0. So the total funds at the end of fiscal year 21 ended with the remaining budget balance of $5,673,219 combined. The general fund remaining budget balance at the end of fiscal year 21 again is at $2,715,182, which is an increase from the past 3 fiscal years. Again, largely due to sales tax revenue coming in at $2,138,725 more than originally budgeted, and property tax revenue coming in at $453,106 more than budgeted. This is great news. Again, the city ended the year on a very healthy and fiscally sound note. Any questions?
I wanted 2%. I wanted 2, remember that?
Wait.
You thought I was crazy.
That's what I was going to say. We should have thanked the individual who sold the sales tax to the public. No, you wanted 3%. I mean, just let's just get it over with.
I wanted 50. I settled for 3. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. I know this is public. Sorry. I mean, later this one. This is awesome.
Any comments or questions? Mrs. Miranda or Mr. Pedrosa? I mean, to end it on first 2019, 700,000 and then 1.5 million, then 2.7 million. Like Mr. Miranda saying, we're just improving every year. I mean, it's not improving and then seeing a shortfall improve. I mean, it's a steady growth here that we're seeing with the city.
Just lately, in the last couple of months, we're still seeing positive trends, but we're also seeing some challenges out there, and hearing some businesses coming into a head with some challenges. So we're very cognizant of that, and with the border continuing to stay closed, shopping patterns could be changing and things like that. So we're still pushing very hard to get the border open, come back to normal as best we can, but I don't know how far we can keep this up, to be honest. This is just, like I said, we're scratching our heads to begin with, but as far as continuing the trend, if the border continues to be closed, at some point we're going to have to either plateau or start trending down. Some businesses have closed, we understand that, and it's obviously not good, but again, we're still conscious of that, of what's coming, and we know that, having the border open will further bring traffic down and more economic activity, so we can continue to do that. Today we received notice that it'll be extended until October 21st, once again, the border closure. So every 21st of the month or 20th of the month, we're checking on that. But just want to mention that because I feel it's important. I know we keep trending that way, but we keep being very very cautious and conscientious of these things that are going on out there. You saw a big number there in the sewer division as well. We also got due to the grant and the impact fees that we charged against that grant, for the Bay Acre sewer installation, we were able to charge close to $800,000 of impact fees towards the grant, so we were able to capitalize on that. So, and that basically goes back into the debt repayments that we have. That's what those impact fees go towards. But certainly that fund is one that certainly needs it. And doing that project not only helped alleviate that public health concern, but it also helped us with providing service, and also that those impact fees were helpful. We of course want to do more capital projects out there with these savings. We also understand that we need to address employees. Like we said, we're going to bring this to mayor and council, and in the budget, when we passed the budget, we said let's do an employee bonus based on the surplus that we get in fiscal year 2021. So we feel very comfortable that we can do that for employees come Christmas time or around right before Christmas time. So we can do an employee appreciation bonus, I should say, and the rest will be looking at investing it back into the community. So those are our vision right now for the utilization of those funds.
If there's any other questions on how we're going to use those funds, there's going to be a town hall on Wednesday evening, where I'm sure he's going to address all of that. Maybe the rest of us. But no, it's very encouraging because we were living paycheck to paycheck for so many years, and now slowly but surely we're fixing up what needs to be fixed up. And I'm talking to the community. I know they're impatient because they're saying, well, now you have this money, go do this. But now we have to prioritize what needs to get done. And like Mr. Pedrosa says, one of our the most important asset that we have is our employees. So take care of them first, and then all these other projects that we need to do. Since Mr. Pedrosa brought up the water and sewer, I think we do need to, because of these numbers and then the surplus that we have, the general reserve surplus, that as you can also explain, Mrs. Miranda, that these funds are different from the general fund. So it's not like we can take money from them, right?
Right, they're enterprise funds, so they should be able to operate and sustain themselves. The general fund should not be subsidizing these funds. It's like a business, so they have to operate that way.
And that's where we're bringing forward some rate increases in both water and wastewater. Water is in need of three wells. You're talking $1.6 million each well. And in order to raise that kind of capital, you need to go out for debt. You need to look at financing options for it. But certainly you need the backing of your rates. When you go out and borrow money, you need to make sure that you're fiscally running a fiscally sustainable operation. Rates haven't been raised since 2012 for water and sewer. So it's definitely time. We haven't looked at those in some time, and I can guarantee that your APS bill has gone up pretty consistent every year, as well as your other utilities. So this is something that, again, we're kind of a little bit behind, but I don't think that far behind that it's a huge impact, but it's still an impact, and we try to minimize that as best we could. We figured out different financing mechanisms for these capital projects that need to happen, seeking out grants as well to be able to get these things. But ultimately, you definitely need to have those rates where they need to be. So.
and it's less of a shock to the customer to have a gradual increase rather than a one-time hit.
I think that's what somebody told me that another city did that's close by, I don't name them, but they had to raise it just in one big hit, and that's when people notice it. And again, $1 or so might be different from, I think the end is going to be like an $8 increase in the next 5 years, right?
It's close to about an $8 and change increase. And so we're looking at about $1 and change a year for the next 5 years of your water and sewer bill going up. So it's definitely not as big as a shock that we did back in 2012, where rates had to be pretty much raised 100%. Again, we're just trying to keep up with expenses. Everything continues to go up. It's also getting more difficult to, treat water and also to basically get water out of the ground as well. So those challenges are there, and basically where we live. So those are things that we're trying to address with this rate increase. Heard a lot of comments out there about you can't, why not use it for streets? Well, why not use it for this? Or why are you guys going to pay salaries? It's not that. It's those funds strictly stay with the water and sewer funds, and they have to be utilized for water and sewer purposes. And we actually commissioned an independent study to show us what those funds needed, and this recommendations basically came from them, and we basically took those recommendations and took them down a notch based on us being able to do different things on the funding and the funding mechanisms that we were going to seek out. So it's definitely not an easy thing to go through, but certainly we're something necessary.
And I think one of the biggest factors with, and I mean, for me, that's maybe speaking about the right solution, but at the wrong time in a sense, because not really our situation, the city situation is really good right now, but inflation, because inflation is so high right now, that $1 a year seems in a way like $5. If you give a little kid money, that $1, that's like $100 to them, right? That's how it feels right now. That $1 feels like $100 in the sense because money isn't worth what it was 3-4 years ago. So hopefully, if the national economy gets better quicker, this hit doesn't look as bad as it does right now. But again, it's something that we have to look into because Douglas has been selling water so cheap for so many years. We've been like the cheapest one in the county, right? Or maybe in the so I mean, sometimes you have to address that issue. It can't be the cheapest for a long time. We'll still be pretty cheap. Any other comments or questions?
Are you guys projecting a big loss with the closing of Food City, like all those sales tax from that area?
I don't know, because those sales are going to be carried over into probably Walmart and other stores.
Mm-hmm.
There will be some loss, but I don't think it's a complete loss.
They're going to show like a huge dent on that, you think?
I think there's going to be some leakage there. It's kind of hard to see how much. It's kind of when Safeway left us. We were trying to figure out how much it was going to be. Are people going to drive to Bisbee to go to that Safeway? It's hard to project shopping patterns. It depends on different people and different lives. Ultimately, groceries I tend to think that you want to have the convenience of getting them closer to your home. But sometimes you do tend to go for specialty items outside of town.
So what was the effect of the Safeway, like when it was all said and done when they left?
Again, very hard to put that into numbers because it got absorbed, it got spread out, some of it, but I think there's some little leakage, like the outside, probably the ones that live in between Bisbee and Douglas, they probably went to Bisbee. Now,
Like in
now
terms of
that-
like the sales tax, it wasn't like notable at the city that there was a dip or anything.
I would say if anything, maybe a 5% or something like that, maximum that we took. And then over the years, it just
Built
kind
up.
of levels out. But I don't want to speak out of the topics, but the town hall, we plan to address what the city's planning to do with the grocery, I guess, situation here. I feel we have a pretty good, a decent market and decent numbers to show grocers that we can attract the second one. So I'd love to talk more in detail at the town hall about that.
Come back and
Not
talk
at
to
the
my
point.
husband. Stay
And
tuned.
and if anything, I mean, these numbers are very encouraging to bring somebody else in because it shows we have the money to sustain
Right.
another business. I mean, we had the money to sustain a food city for a few years. I mean, we could just say the same thing, and especially if they go out where the big guys at over there, Walmart. So, but that's the encouraging news. The sales tax, people here and also across the line are spending money, even with all these things happening, all these obstacles. We're still in a really good place with money we can spend. So, good selling point for another grocery. We can talk about that one. Any other questions or comments? There's none. Item number 5. Thank you, Mrs. Miranda, for the presentation. Item number 5, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I know.
A motion by Ms. Moneo. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mrs. Lopez. Roll call, please. Or
Mr.
do we
Grijalva?
roll call? Do we roll call or do we just?
No.
Say aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. The yeas have it. Motion, meeting adjourned at 6:02.
I was gonna vote no.
Fast.